Do it.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to be on time here. So welcome, everyone. Let's get started. We're recording this summit for educational promotional purposes, and the video will be posted to social media. I'm Edwin Rutch. I'm the director of the Empathy Center, which you can actually see behind me. This is a new Empathy Center that we're setting up in Santa Barbara, California. Yay! And I'd like to welcome everyone to this Empathy Summit on what is the role of empathy in conflict resolution. And I'd like to pass it on to our host for this summit, and that is Kathleen Awigon. Kathleen is the founder of Bridges of Peace and providing education and communication coaching and conflict resolution services throughout the US and around the world for over 20 years. And she is the host of a 30-minute podcast called Co-Creating Peace, which is about conscious communication and conflict transformation and can be heard on all podcast providers. And she interviewed me too. Thanks for that, Kathleen. The focus of Kathleen's work is to help communities, organizations, and individuals become empowered to fulfill their greatest potential through education, dialogue, and negotiation and collaboration. You can learn more about Kathleen on the homepage for this summit. We'll be putting that in periodically into the chat. So the forum is yours, Kathleen. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin, and welcome everyone to the third in our series of Empathy Summits. Today, as Edwin was saying, we're going to be exploring the role of empathy in conflict resolution. And boy, is that needed in the world today. I'm delighted to have two esteemed conflict resolution colleagues co-hosting the summit with me, BJ Guyden and Linda Bass. And I'm going to tell you more about them in just a few minutes. But first, I want to let you know that this summit is hosted by the Empathy Center, which is building the empathy movement around the world. And we'd like to extend our deep gratitude to our financial sponsors, Police to Peace, a national nonprofit organization which is bridging the gap between law enforcement agencies and the communities they serve with positive policing practices. They unite police and communities with programs that uplift and heal them. And Potluck Action, who made the Empathy Circle app, which makes it very easy for anyone to host their own online empathy circle. And then we have our partners. Foundation for Developing Compassion and Wisdom supports people in developing a warm heart and a wise mind. Peace Alliance educates, advocates, and mobilizes people into action to transform systems and public policy toward a culture of peace. And the Listen First Project is a network of more than 500 bridging organizations that leads the collaborative movement to heal America by bridging divides. Also, National Coalition for Dialogue and Deliberation, which is a network of innovators who bring people together across divides to discuss, decide, and take action together effectively on today's toughest issues. The Conflict Transformation, Peace Building, and Security is a leading network on peace building and conflict transformation, counting more than 60,000 members. And the International Listening Association, which is advancing listening practice, training, and research worldwide. We invite your organization to be a partner too. You can explore that more by checking out our website, empathysummit.com, for details. And finally, we want to thank our many amazing volunteers who give freely to their time and their work to make these summits possible. So here's what you have to look forward to in today's summit. Each of my co-hosts has assembled a group of experts in a wide range of conflict resolution modalities from all over the world. As you're listening to the presenters, you can feel free to post your questions into the chat. And if you want a particular person to answer that question, make sure that you say that in the chat. And then in the interest of time, those questions which were asked by more than one person, we'll get to a couple of those questions that were asked by more than one person. And then the rest of the questions that you ask, I'm going to be gathering together. And we're going to get the answers to those questions after the summit from the various experts that are here today. And then when we post the summit recording and summary, the answers to your questions will be there as well. And after we hear from our wonderful presenters, you're going to have an opportunity to participate in an empathy circle. And being in an empathy circle, if you haven't been in one already, you need to know this. It's an opportunity to have an experience that most people are starved for. The experience of feeling deeply heard by another person. Think about it. When was the last time you felt deeply heard by another person? Join us in an empathy circle after the presentations, and you can have that experience today. And after the empathy circles, we'll have a large group debrief of that experience. This event is going to last until 11 o'clock Pacific time, 1 p.m. Central time, and 2 p.m. Eastern time. So before we get started, I just want to introduce you all to a term that you're going to hear us use often, which is ADR. ADR is an acronym for Alternative Dispute Resolution, which encompasses a wide variety of conflict resolution processes that are alternatives to taking the conflict before a judge to determine the outcome for the participants. It's always best if the participants can be self-determining in the outcome of their conflict. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my esteemed co-hosts, each of whom will moderate a segment of this summit. And you can learn more about them by checking out but you can click on their name on the summit summary, the link has been posted in the chat. If you click on their name in that summary, you can learn a lot more about them. But here's a little bit of each of them for you. So Linda Bass is going to host our second segment. Linda's introduction to mediation occurred during her property and casualty insurance career. She recognized then that ADR options are cost-efficient and expeditious opportunities to resolve conflict arising from relationships and business transactions. After her insurance career, Linda volunteered and was eventually employed as coordinator of mediation training at a nonprofit mediation service. Linda is the founder of ADR4U2, Conflict Resolved, offering mediation, arbitration, training, and facilitator services. She has an MA in psychology and is a member of the Texas Association of Mediators and the Tarrant County Association of Mediators, where she previously served as its vice president. Brenda B.J. Guyden is a credentialed distinguished mediator. She gained recognition in January of this year for her appearance on Tuesday's talk radio show, where she highlighted her expertise in workplace and divorce mediation. BJ's achievements include international recognition with Mediators Beyond Borders International's Agreeing to Disagree Spotlight publication. She received the prestigious Beautiful Heart Award as one of 40 Dallas businesswomen. The Texas Mediator Credentialing Association, Texas Association of Mediators, and MBBI, the Trust Network, are affiliates that she values. She's also a former Dallas County election judge. BJ was a featured speaker in the July Empathy Summit earlier this year. Her company, Guyden Mediation Group's motto is, "We guide, you decide." And her life philosophy is encapsulated in the quote, "This too shall pass." Welcome, BJ. Thank you for hosting our first segment. Your microphone is off, BJ.
Thank you, everyone, especially our sponsors. I want to thank everybody for being here. You could have chosen to be anywhere this morning, and you chose to be here with us. I want you to know that we are grateful. We appreciate your presence. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to welcome a distinguished panel of international attorneys whose diverse expertise span continents and enhance our discussion today. Without further ado, I want to introduce you to Chijoke Ibiku. He's an attorney. He's an author of several books. He's the principal partner of Guardian Mediation and a partner with 3Cs Met International Institute of Mediation. They are training children in Africa on mediation and ADR, as well as empathy. I would like you to just see some of what he's doing right now, and then we'll hear him speak. Thank you, Wendy.
So you're taking the place of another. Now, can you imagine again a situation like now, for instance, Good Luck and David, two good names. Good Luck and David, they had an issue. And David does not want to tell me what that issue is. It's a very serious issue. David will not want to open up. And Good Luck is there. They don't want to let anybody know. And I come with a story to tell David, I've seen this thing happen. Look at how it happened. Look at what happened. I think you should do this. I think you shouldn't do this. This is what happened. Empathy helps the person to what? Open up. What did I say?
Open up.
Because when somebody is telling you, when you see somebody, if I tell you, maybe one man is very hungry, and I come and tell the man, you know, even before you're seeing this man like this, 5 years ago, I could hardly even put 100,000 together. The person will say, is it possible that this man that I'm seeing now passed through this thing? It's easier for me to get that man to open up to me because he feels that, I've told him that I have passed through this stage before. Do you understand what I'm saying? So empathy gives you what? A safe space. What did I say?
The safe space.
What did I say?
A safe space.
It gives you a safe space. It allows you to connect. And remember, we said in mediation, empathy is a trait in mediation.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, Chijoke, if you could tell us a little bit more about your work that you're doing there in Africa.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for having me. Thank you so much, Brenda, for the invitation. It's indeed an honor to be in your midst. I'd like to define empathy, and I'm going to be in a hurry so that our network problem in Africa doesn't knock me out. So I'd like to define empathy. Empathy is basically taking the place of another. For the children and even for adults at the Institute, I like to tell them it's like wearing another person, trying to understand the underlying factors, taking the place of another. And once we can get that all done as human beings, to a certain extent, we're going to have at least a peaceable world, at least to some extent, to live in. And, I like us to, compartmentalize, put it in, I want us to get it in, let me spell it out correctly. Empathy, as I've defined, definition of empathy, in the place of another, number one. Number two, power of empathy, because you need to know what the power of empathy is. The power of empathy allows individuals to truly connect. I use that word for the children because you need to connect. If you can't connect, you can't now get what the other person is feeling. Nobody is going to tell somebody who is not yet broken, who hasn't bought into his own circumstance, what is actually passing through. If you're going to see a man who works hard every day and yet doesn't make a living, if you refer to him as being lazy, and meanwhile he's working very hard, you've broken that man. So you need to understand the underlying factors why he works so hard yet makes so little. So empathy is like, that's what I normally intertwine it with emotion. You need to walk up something related to emotion. Because once you have a good active conscience, then plus or minus to a greater extent, you can understand where somebody else is coming from. So for me, the power of empathy allows human beings to connect, and it gives you a more sense of belonging. And of course, above all, fosters the deepest relationships. Because if somebody connects with you, wherever you are, then you build a very strong relationship with that person. Plus or minus, whatever conflict will arise between you and that person will be reduced to the barest minimum. Again, empathy helps to build stronger communities. Because empathy creates a connect, particularly with emotion, as I mentioned earlier, there's a greater chance that there will be increased recognition. People will feel more to something. They'll belong more to whatever you're bringing to them. If you're understanding somewhere where he's coming from, he's going to help that community grow, because you've made that person feel, okay, you're part of this, you're not left out. So empathy builds a stronger community. And it also helps for us now, presently, as is commonly termed, it gives room for the mental well-being of human beings. Empathy encourages education, like what you see me do with the children. For the children, in Nigeria, Africa as a whole, the issues about the culture, race, and tribe. A lot of people the religion, a lot of people, different religion, different cultures, different race. So we are trying to allow them to connect. Once they connect, and understand, okay, that the fact that I am a particular tribe doesn't make this person less human than I am. You're trying to have them, let them connect. You're trying to see them. And children could be very funny. A child could have a disability, or a child could be not at the highest level of, in the class, performing very well. So you need to get these children to understand where this child is coming from. And a child could not be, maybe some people are not strong to defend themselves. It gives room for bullying. So we're also trying to stress to them that they should, as much as possible, understand that a child is weak. You shouldn't use that as an opportunity to bully that child. You should try and encourage that child in his weakness. If the child is timid, you should try and see how you can bring out the best to at least make sure that child gets rid of that timidity. Again, for us, empathy in the healthcare. Empathy in the healthcare. And I'm touching all these points because this is where empathy actually has to resonate with people. Empathy in the healthcare. In Nigeria, for instance, a lot of women die out of child giving birth when they go to hospital to die. And many people, the doctors are not patient. The doctors wonder, okay, why don't you just push? It's all about pushing. Once we push, the baby comes out. But some women might not have the strength. It's okay, Mrs. A pushed, why can't you push? Mrs. B did, why can't you do this? So, but empathy gives room for us as human beings to understand that the strength Mrs. A had, Mrs. B might not have, or Mrs. B might have had a phobia. Maybe she's heard from her friends that people that come for child delivery die, and she might be, she have that phobia. So you need to see how you can carry that person along, and as much as possible, make that person have a very comfortable time when giving delivery. So I've decided to. I understand I have 10 minutes, so that's why I'm rushing. I decided to put these things in strata for you to understand the power of. I've defined empathy, the power of empathy in the education sector, empathy in the health sector, and again, empathy building stronger communities. And for us as mediators, particularly, once a community is built on strength of somebody having something to understand that you can, everybody can leverage on another person's weakness or strength to make the other person feel wanted and not feel left out, then to a great extent, you've created room for the world to move towards a very peaceful environment, at least to a reasonable extent, towards a peaceful environment. The children, you see me talking to the children. I was telling them some things in the class. A child that was as big as, if it was a very big child, he had a little one. And I said, if the little one slaps you, imagine that you and that little boy are alone in the class. Nobody, just imagine that I'm not around. I'm not around. Imagine that he's alone in the class and he slaps you. What will you do? Somebody said, I'll slap back. A child almost the same size said, I'll slap him back. The other person said, I'll report. So that person said, oh, I'll be surprised. I wonder why he will slap me back. I wonder why what gave this little boy the effrontery to slap me? You see, the emotions we have in human beings is another thing we want to, because for me personally, I believe emotion is connected to is empathy. I want to refer to, for you to be empathetic, you need to actually have an active conscience. You don't necessarily have to be a saint. You don't have to be a saint to be empathetic. You just have to have an active conscience. An active conscience you don't need to be an angel to have an active conscience. There are some people who are not even, they don't even know God, permit me, but they have an active conscience. It just makes you a good human being to know, thus far can I go? Thus far can I make this person uncomfortable? Thus far can I do this for this person to make this person uncomfortable? So once the world rallies around what you're doing at Empathy Circle, then to a certain extent, to a very great extent, if not because conflict is part of our human existence, but at least to a very great extent, you can reduce whatever level of conflict to the barest minimum by virtue of imbibing the practice of empathy. Empathy is right. It is pertinent for everyone to give a listening ear. Take more time. Do not be fast to be judgmental. check what the underlying circumstances. Like I normally tell the children in class, some children could come to school today looking very sad, and maybe somebody, and you don't know whether he has eaten in his house. You don't know whether the parents are about to do a very particular day. And if you want to pile up all the pressure or beat the children, as flog the children and say, why are you stubborn in the class? And you don't take the extra time to say, look, what is happening? I see you're looking different. And that is empathy. Many people have not actually gone to that extent to say, let me go the extra mile. Like I tell everybody that cares to live, in every forum I'm invited to, every human being has this moment to tell yourself the truth. You and I have the moment to tell ourselves the truth. The only thing is, are you willing to listen to what that truth is at that moment, what the truth you're telling yourself is, and are you again willing to act on it? If you're willing to tell yourself that truth at that particular time, and you're willing to act on it, then plus or minus, you make, particularly if it's a good one, you make a good environment. You can only imagine what positive ripple effects these children I'm teaching on empathy, if they imbibe this and put it to practice, or empathy in leadership. Imagine a man who is in leader. If you're in leadership position, you have authority over people, and they see you're taking their essences. You're trying to understand why each staff that comes to work today is not looking particularly very happy. Something beyond the normal. You're going to get the best out of those people, those workers. If Mr. A is an employer that doesn't bother too much to wonder what the staff go through, and Mr. B is somebody, then you get the best out of the employer. I understand I only have 1 more minute. All right, I think that's enough. So let's just have it. What is empathy? Power of empathy, empathy in the healthcare, leadership, empathy in education, and empathy in giving you a sense of belonging in the community. Thank you very much.
You're muted, BJ.
That was amazing, Chijoki. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's amazing what you're doing with the children there in Africa. And I heard you say that, some of the kids might even come to school hungry. And for everyone, his information is in the chat. If you would like to contribute to the school, they could always use rice or whatever it is that you like to contribute to the school there in Africa. Rice will go a long way in that school. But thank you so much, Chijoki. Appreciate that. So next we have for you guys the wonderful
Thank you.
Sonal Cabana, founder, CEO of Rectitude ADR. She's an advocate, mediator, trainer, and has ongoing events that promote peace all throughout India. She believes peer mediation cuts across all racial, culture lines, and I totally agree with that. She is on the panel of Mediation and Conciliation Center and ADR Center in New Delhi. I welcome Sonal.
Greetings, everyone, and namaste from India. I am empaneled on the ADR Center of Punjab, and I am based in New Delhi. It's been a pleasure to be here, and let me just start sharing the screen on empathy, because what I believe, I will just, in my opinion, empathy is something, like a candle, which gives light to the other one, and a candle doesn't lose anything. So that is the power of empathy that I believe in. And when we talk about empathy, we have to talk about something that is like every person is different. When we talk about empathy, the response and trauma, we all undergo a lot of trauma in our lives, but the trauma response of every individual can vary. And violence could be just one cry for help. Right is the language of the unheard, because sometimes violence is just a measure a person uses to be heard. And when we talk about that, reaching out, feelings of compassion, they make a huge difference in the lives of people undergoing trauma. So when we talk about empathy, we have to understand that what we are doing to the other person, we are trying to reach out and what the other person needs, basically. When we are humans and we are, constantly seeking validations from those around us. Where even a small child, when you see the child and that child has been hurt, what the child is looking is towards his mother or parents, to loved ones, just a little bit of attention, that love, that affection. Because when you are going through trauma, a compassionate another person makes a huge amount of difference. And that might not be just with words, because we communicate a lot with or without words. A touch, a look, a knowing glance from a parent, the child is soothed. And even if nothing, just holding the hand of someone makes a huge difference. So that is the power of empathy. When we talk about empathy, the first thing from the mediation or ADR perspective that we all understand and we all have been talking about is active listening. And active and patient listening. There are two differences that we all, as mediators, understand. The amount of listening to reply and respond versus the listening to understand. And a trained mediator is listening to understand. That is a huge difference, because when people talk about why mediation, what is the need for a trained mediator or a mediation service to conduct mediation? Well, the need is because anybody can listen to respond. But when a person is trained, or is, even if he's not trained, he has the innate quality of listening to understand. That is the person that makes a huge difference to the process of mediation. Because connection is very crucial. Connection of one individual to another on a personal level, keeping the professional dynamics intact. And this is what we generally teach or we train people when we do mediation training, that when you are connecting to an individual, you're trying to understand what that person is going through, how that person is responding, or what are the thoughts of that person, the inner thoughts. Maybe the person's behavior is very bitter, maybe because they have gone through a lot of trauma in their life. So that trauma has made them bitter. What is the reason behind that trauma? What is the thing that is bringing that trauma? So keeping that personal touch there, yet keeping your professional dynamics intact, there is a difference between empathy and sympathy. So a person would definitely need empathy from someone, from a mediator who can just feel what they are or understand what is happening in their life. But they do not need to be told that they're correct. They're not listening for affirmation, or they are not speaking for affirmation. They're just trying to understand. I will give an example here. In one of my practices, there was a divorce or case going on, and in the case when I gave chance to the gentleman to speak, the father of the child, and he spoke for the first time, maybe, and he, after speaking his whole heart out, he said, "Ma'am, I really feel relieved because I have today got to speak what I wanted to speak." So that is the power of patient listening and the power of connecting on a very personal level, yet keeping the professional time. I would here mention also that people undergoing trauma experience an emptiness from within, and they seek to fill that emptiness. They might be looking like normal people, but there is an emptiness that has been through the times, and they need to fill that emptiness with love, compassion, support. And that is what they are seeking when they're seeking empathy from others. And that is what is being addressed by a mediator, a trained mediator, when he listens actively, or he affirms them that, yes, I am here to understand what you're speaking. Maybe I'm not here to judge you. I'm not going to say whether it is right or wrong. but I listen as an independent person. So that ignites a spark, a ray of hope in someone who would have lost all theirs in the struggles of life, and they have definitely, when the parties are coming to mediation, they have lost they have something going on in their lives, and those struggles have, they might have not been able to give 100% of the logical reasoning brain of theirs because of the circumstances or the emotional trauma that they are facing. And at that time, it is the mediator who is going to take them from that illogical phase that they are temporarily facing to some logic in their life, to some see some purpose in their life through a series of talking, first of all listening, and then careful intervention, and then making them realize from their positions to their interests, first of all to their common interests, then their and slowly a ray of hope comes in their life, because invoking a positive environment in the room is very important. And that positivity in the room, when everything is gloomy around them and there's someone who is who is very positive, who is taking them logically around, who is talking to them like a person, mature person, and you know giving them assertion that this is a problem that could have a solution, and when they're going towards that direction, makes a huge difference. The empathy produces an infectious effect. This I have actually seen in my practice, that it helps in changing the demographics of the room. One person, one mediator, if that mediator is talking positive, and one person starts to believe in that positivity, and it generally has an infectious effect, and the room, the sentiments of the room completely change. So that is a very good and positive aspect. A good and a trained mediator can really help there in restoring the balance of life, in effectively opening the channels of communication, not thinking about what is going to be the end result of this communication or uh, this process, but trying to restore a delicate balance of communication between them, uh, a life infusing what they have maybe going through a gloomy phase, and now they come to some logical reasoning phase where they are open to address the issues in their life and work upon them to find a solution. So that change is a very positive change that happens. I would also be talking about neutrality, because I was mentioned there. So if you, this is a, a, a very famous saying that if you're neutral in the situations of injustice, you've chosen the side of aggressor. Now, here I want to mention that a mediator has to carefully observe and weigh every situation. Because here, the example is that if an elephant a has his foot on the mouse, then in the tail of the mouse, it's 1 minute. I'm just going to wind it up. And you can say that you are neutral. Now you have to carefully observe whether the elephant has his foot on the tail of the mouse to harm the mouse, or to maybe potentially save the mouse from an apparent danger that the mouse could be jumping onto. And this is where the maturity, the neutrality of the mediator has to be there. The breach of confidentiality to meet the principles of justice is quite justified when especially in cases of child abuse, in cases of domestic violence, in cases of elderly violence in the house. There may be elderly people, senior citizens who are being emotionally abused in the house, and when a mediator comes to know about it, the neutrality maybe has to be maintained, but the breach of confidentiality has to happen, and it is imperative that a mediator has to report that. So I would here in the caucus session, that is also a very effective use of caucus session through power balance. And this, I have to mention that a mediator has to free his mind from personal prejudices and biases to understand and to be able to receptive to communication. And in the end, I would say that we all are different shades and same shapes of the same rainbow, where the mediator is the master of the process and yet the slave of the outcome. So he has to control the process, yet give the freedom of choice to the party in order to maintain, seeking to maintain a harmonious environment, if not perfect harmony between both the client. But that helps. That opens the channels of communication. So not taking. Yes,
Absolutely
that's
beautiful,
all.
Sonal. Thank you so much. That was lovely. And we will do a 1-minute recap. So next, our last but not least on this particular portion, Lisa Singh. Lisa is an independent facilitator and trainer, freelance with Antioch College. Lisa is on the board of National Association for Community Mediators. Again, National Association for Community Mediators. She is a member of Mediator Beyond Borders International, which is actually how I met her, like in 2018, 2019, during the pandemic, right before the pandemic. This month, Lisa will be leading a training session titled Creating a Community of Belonging and traveling to Nairobi Peace Conference in Kenya. I want to go to Africa. This is the 10th International Peace Conference for Mediator Beyond Borders, and Mediator Beyond Borders are hosting the event. Welcome, Lisa. We'll hear from you now. You're muted. You're muted.
That's fine. Well, thank you so thank you so much. And thank you so much for inviting me. I don't have a beautiful PowerPoint like Sonal did. Those were gorgeous slides. I'm really impressed with all those beautiful slides and the impact of that. So I'm just going to talk about empathy just off the cuff. I have no idea what I'm going to say in the next few minutes because that's what I do. But really, I think I had this discussion with BJ earlier. And the way that I look at empathy is it's when we expand our boundaries to include the other, when we become more than just ourselves and we become more inclusive. I think it's a natural process. We talk about empathy, like people who don't have empathy as being somehow stunted or you'll hear that, somebody has a personality disorder. So that means that empathy is natural to us. And it's that natural ability to open ourselves. And when I describe it, the way that it was described to me when I was studying intercultural communication is, imagine you're driving a car. You're driving this car, and then all of a sudden you go through a low bridge. And if you start ducking your head through the low bridge, you've now expanded your whole boundaries as if you are part of the car and you're feeling like, oh, I need to duck my head because it's low. Or if you scrape the side of your car, do you feel like, oh no, you feel like you felt it. That's empathy. And we can have empathy with not only human beings, but even with our car, imagining the feeling of, oh, it's great, and moving that way. And I know I do that. So I'm sure that everybody else does that. It's not just that. So it's that feeling. So when we talk about it in mediation, how do we manage that in mediation? It's for the mediator, okay, listening is important. And we talk about listening for what's underneath, but I want to say that listening is part of being empathetic, that the skills of listening are not just listening to understand. The skills of listening include actually being able to expand your boundaries, to hear the person, not just what they say, but to be able to feel some of those feelings so that you can reflect it back for them. I mean, in order to really fully listen to someone, I have to be able to start to feel what they feel. That doesn't mean you agree. but it does mean you start to do that. And then you reflect back what they say. I might reflect back, wow, you really seem angry, and that anger, is driving these words. I might reflect that back so that you can look at yourself, because the end goal in a mediation is that what happens in our emotional intelligence is in emotional intelligence says that what happens in a conflict is we become self-centered. We are not able to listen to the other. We get to that fight or flight, and we become closed systems. And in order to be an open system and to have empathy for the other, we have to shift. And so the goal of the mediator is to shift the parties from being closed systems to being open systems, so they have empathy with one another. So the goal is not just what I have as a mediator, but now to shift the parties so that they are not thinking only about this is how I feel and this is what this is all about, but to, wow, I think I can see how she feels or he feels. I think I can understand how they are. And once I understand that, then that connection takes place. And I love the slides that Sonal had with the listening and the connection, because that's what it's all about. I also want to say about empathy, when we think about it, empathy has to be coupled with caring. Empathy alone is not enough, because I can have empathy, but I could also have a negative, way to use it. I might want to hurt the other. That's not the way we want empathy to work. Empathy has to work with caring in order to have that connection, in order to open us up to feeling and connecting with the other. And so when we talk about empathy, I think most of us are talking about caring empathy. And that's what I'm going to call it, caring empathy. That's an important aspect in life. And so I was telling the story also with BJ in an earlier conversation. So I'm going to see if I can incorporate it, BJ. We'll see. So there was I work a lot with people also, not just in a mediation, but also people coming out of the prison and re-entering into society. And one of the skills that I tell them, the only skill I have, and I'll tell them that the only skill I have is I will listen to you. But I've created some deep connections with some of these men because I listen, and because I have empathy, and because I'm not judging, because that's the third element that really helps creating connection. So one is empathy, the other is caring, and the third is non-judgment. Really being able to acceptance and non-judgment are important. And that acceptance really goes very far into helping us create very deep connections. And so there was one gentleman, and I remember we were talking about working together, and usually I don't ask them why they went to prison. And this gentleman opened up for me, well, my father-in-law found himself at the point of my gun. And like, when he said that, he said it with a little bit of irony, and he was trying to be funny. But in that 1 second, I felt his pain. I felt the pain that he felt from having done what he had done. His words didn't sound like that, but the feeling came. And I'm sure a lot of you will be able to think of feeling times when somebody told you something, and in that second you felt it. It like hit me like, I don't know, like something very deep. And as it turned out, this man had been someone whose mother convinced him to kill his stepfather. And he did that. And then she put while he was in prison, because he didn't turn her in, she put a contract on her own son's life. And that realization of what he went through as a young man of 18 from his mother, it's like Imagine that. Imagine your mother doesn't love you even enough. She makes you do something so heinous, lets you go to prison, and then puts a contract on your life. Imagine that, what he has had to live with his whole life. And this gentleman is very fortunate. He spent 40 years in prison. He's very fortunate that he got out, and he is a model citizen. He's probably one of the most inspiring men that I've ever met. And so I say that to say, that's what empathy can open us up to. Imagine if I didn't have the experience of knowing this. Imagine if I was just living my life in a suburb and having all these privileges, but I didn't find out, the experience of somebody else. Empathy opens us up to a wider world than ourselves. Empathy, being able to open yourself up to empathy, opens us up to experiences we would never ever have. We'll never know what it really is like to do something, but we can touch that. We can touch it for a moment, and it makes us more than who we are. And so empathy is, I think, one of the most amazing capabilities we have as human beings. And when you pair it with non-judgment and acceptance and caring, I think that it can move mountains. I believe so much in empathy, that empathy is something that inspires us. Empathy is something that connects us. Empathy makes us so much greater than ourselves. And so I'm not sure, BJ asked me a question because I'm not sure what else to say.
Microphone, BJ.
No,
I apologize. Thank you so much for that, Lisa. We all have a 1-minute recap. That was amazing, opening us up. And that story, when you said that, it just gave me chills to know that somebody parent could do that and you not judge them, to know why they're in prison for 40 years and for him to be able to get out. But I'm moving right along. I apologize. That just kind of, touched me. So what we'll do now is just a recap real quick with Sonal, Chijoki, and Lisa. So Chijoki, if you could just give us like a 30-second recap regarding empathy and what you're doing there with the children. Chijoki? Okay, so
hold on. Let me just pack. I was already all right. Well, for me, empathy really, like I said, it's just a tonic for the world. Empathy is just a tonic for the world. Once you can feel what the other person feels, once you know where the other person is coming from, then you're, to a very great extent, the world will be a better place. A lot of people have been damned to circumstances beyond their control because they could not understand or take out time to understand where the person is coming from. Like I tell everybody, every human being has 1 minute. You have a moment to tell yourself the truth. Once you tell yourself that truth, are you willing to work on that truth? And once you work on that truth, and you're working on that truth because of empathy, and once you work on that truth, the world is a better place. Thank you very much.
thank you so much, and blessings. And we put all your information in the chat regarding rights for the children. Sonal.
Yes, BJ.
Do a 1-minute recap, please, on how you're feeling about empathy and where you are right now.
Yes, I think when it could be summed up in one thing, in one way, it's just seeing the things from the other person's perspective, or trying to understand the things from the other person's perspective without judging. And you have to, like I said, your cup should be empty. You do not have to have any thoughts, perceptions, biases to be able to grab in all that information without any judgment, and that makes a huge difference. So that's what I think I use in my and one more thing that I said, that being first on a personal level being empathetic, and yet on a professional level being discreet. That is for
I love that. I love that, having your cup empty. And Lisa.
So my recap is just that empathy is about not just being ourselves, but increasing our boundaries to beyond ourselves, to becoming more inclusive, and to becoming more of a belonging community. And that, of course, is important when we couple it with caring and non-judgment and acceptance.
I want to thank you, ladies. That was amazing. I really appreciate it. Good night. I really appreciate everything. So, and safe travels, Lisa, to Kenya.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Yes, I'm excited for you. Thank you, everyone. And then just in closing, what I can say, empathy and context to transformative mediation and ADR enables the parties to authentically connect and explore the needed perspective. So I'll turn it on over. Thank you.
Thank you, BJ, for hosting that incredible segment. And thank you to each of the speakers, Chijoki, Sonal, and Lisa, for all that you shared with us. So much wisdom. Thank you. And now I'm going to hand it over to my second co-host and welcome Linda and your guests. Linda, take it away.
You're muted.
Thank you, Kat. I appreciate that. I'm going to start by, we have two great speakers today. Both of them are from Texas, as I am. And the first one is Deanna Guerrera. Deanna Guerrera is a mediator and a mediation trainer. She has a company called Diverse, I believe it's Diverse Mediation. Now, Deanna has been involved in conflict resolution, specifically mediation and arbitration for the past 3 years. And we're here today to hear how she incorporates empathy into mediation. Thank you, Deanna.
Thank you. Good morning. How is everyone? I hope everyone's doing good. I have been enjoying all the speakers thus far. This is great. I'm so happy to see everyone, and I want to thank you for being here with me today. So I want to let you know that empathy is a vital role in mediation. As you all know, it's the art of also remaining neutral, combining it. But I want to touch on something else a little bit different. Because I do teach mediation, I instruct mediation, I teach people how to mediate. Well, how do you mediate and remain neutral and show empathy? How do you do that, right? Because we can talk all day about let's understand people, that's great. But half of the time, I'm going to be honest with you, you're on a Zoom on your mediation, right? It's a virtual meeting. You're not in person. You don't know their background. You don't know their living situation. You don't know. You might not be able to gravitate where they're actually coming from. So what I want to do is let you know that there are ways that you can show empathy, remain neutral, and still be able to communicate it. Okay? So look at everybody right now in the room. Everybody has an attentive face. So, you know, everybody right now is giving me their undivided attention. You can empathize and know, okay, when I go in this room, I know this person. As soon as you go in that room, you kind of can tell. You can do it's what I teach my students. It's called a temperature check. A temperature check can save your mediation. You can automatically know what time it is. What that means is if I have someone come in the room in my mediation and they're kind of nervous, what I mean by nervous, how do you see that? It's body language. We're on a Zoom. They're going to be looking maybe down at their phone, maybe scrambling. Maybe when they speak to you, they sound like they can't finish their sentence. They could be completely nervous. You might not know why they're nervous, but you can empathize with being nervous. You can relate because you can see it. You can see it in their body language. Body language helps you see some of what we are expressing, right? As long as, and also verbal. And I know I've heard some of the speakers touch on active listening, okay? But what I want you to understand is most of us don't listen very well. And it's true. Because when your kids come up to you and they say, hey, mom, hey, dad, can I go outside? The first thing you're thinking is, no, you can't go outside because you didn't clean your room. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. You already stopped listening to them a long time ago. You already responded in your mind and said, you know what? I already know exactly what I'm going to say. I can't empathize with the fact that you want to go outside right now because you didn't do it, but you stopped listening already, right? And we do it all the time. So in order to really hone in and empathize with people, we have to practice that. Well, this time when someone's telling me their feelings, I've got to listen fully. I got to listen. Now, why do you want to go outside? Right? Even though we feel like, well, I don't think you need to go outside because you didn't do this, you did. But why do they really want to go outside? Just hear them out, just listen, and maybe we can understand that, you know. And we talk about understanding a lot. And I want to say, you know, again, I heard a speaker say this already. You don't have to agree with them. If I say I like ketchup and you say you like mustard, I'm not telling you I hate mustard. I'm not telling you that mustard is, you know, the worst thing ever. I just think to like ketchup. And as you guys can see on my virtual Zoom, I use my hands a lot when I talk. It doesn't mean that I'm aggressive because of how I use my hands, right? You're not scared of me. You can empathize with that. You can see that I'm a very inviting person. So my, like today, I want to teach you guys that you can show empathy and mediation and remain neutral. And I do it all the time. And I want to let you know too, sometimes it can be a struggle because you know, you have to take yourself out of the situation, right? You can't put yourself in the situation. And you have to make sure that you're always going to remain neutral. And I know we speak about that a lot, but it's a very important role. And I teach my students this all the time. You can understand them and you can empathize with them, but you cannot put yourself too far in the situation because you can become biased. Okay. And you don't want to do that, right? You don't want to make another person feel like you didn't hear them and you're on their side. Because now you offended one person. And these days, I don't know if you guys know, but everybody I don't know if you see it, TikTok, Facebook, everybody's almost offended about something, right? And sometimes we have to be understanding to that. We don't know their background. You don't know their triggers. You don't know these things. So you have to be careful in how you speak. When somebody comes in the room and they tell me good morning, I let them know good morning. How are you? I speak to them right away. There's a generational gap issue as well. You know, we have a younger like me or anyone else younger, and there's the baby boomers. They're so used to greeting with good morning. And if I don't say good morning back, you know what they take it as a sign of? Disrespect. Right? You see how you guys are all nodding your head? It's a verbal communication. It is an empathy that you guys understand that I teach my students that you have to understand some of our communication issues or just our generational gap. You know, I might be offending somebody because I didn't say good morning back, right? And then you can lose your mediation just off like that. Because now they think, well, they didn't listen to me. They didn't hear me at all. She didn't say good morning back. And then now you lost one person in the mediation already. So it goes deeper than that. It's for me, I want to teach you guys that body language and temperature check. How do you temperature check? You can ask open-ended questions. Okay, you can ask those questions without responding to it with the judgmental. You know, you don't want to judge them. And I think Lisa had spoke on this already, but I always do that as well. I always repeat what they told me. I always let them know I heard what you said. This makes you feel that way. Let them know you've heard them, because if you dismiss it, then they know not to trust you. And that's how empathy works. Empathy works through trust. Do you have the open space for me? Are you listening to me? Just like your kids, they know when mom is in a good mood. Let me go ask her now. She's in a good mood, right? She's going to have that open space, but she's in a bad mood. She's not going to do it. You see, we all do it. We're all doing this every single day. And I want to share with you, I have had a mediation before, and it was a divorce, and it really tore me up. It was a divorce mediation. It was two adults, you know, just divorcing, and they had didn't know why, but they had their children in the mediation on the Zoom. And mind you, this is devastating for them. And what's devastating for them was the dog. They didn't want the dog to go with the mom and the dad, and you know, they were fighting. And I had to pretty much mediate the adults and the children. The adults, I have to show empathy, of course, because they are getting, a divorce and I'm being understanding. But I had to show a lot of empathy towards the children. The children do not understand things like we do, right? We know that. They don't understand. This was so devastating for the little girl. I mean, she was crying and I almost felt like I don't know how to get her to understand that she's going to see her dog again. She's just not going to see the dog all the time. And at 10 years old, she's not paying bills. She's not divorcing. She doesn't know all these things. All she knows is that dog, that's her emotional support. I don't have a dog. I'm not a dog owner, but I can relate. Because at 10 years old, you remember being 10. You remember feeling like your parents didn't listen to you, you didn't have nobody, or your parents may have been divorcing then too. You know what it feels like to feel alone. You know that. So every day that I get in mediations, I know what time it is usually because I use my skills to read the room. I can read this room. Everyone in here is giving me their undivided attention. So I don't feel like too nervous, right? You guys are giving me the energy. And that's how empathy works, showing your empathy towards people that are actually opening up to you and they creating the space for them to be there.
1 minute.
So, oh, okay, sorry. So I just wanted to share that with you. That's how I teach my students. And I try to make sure that I always create the space for everybody to remain neutral, as well as showing empathy. And empathy is very important because sometimes in this world, we just want someone to understand. That's all people want. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Some very good points. I appreciate your time and your efforts and your training too. We need more people training mediators. So thank you very much. All right, our next speaker will be Irene Zucker. Irene Zucker is the principal of Verbal Calm Executive Development. She has been involved in conflict resolution for 25 years. She has a BA degree in economics and finance with postgraduate studies in organizational management from the University of Texas. Again, she is from Texas, as I am. I mentioned that earlier. She continues learning more and more about conflict resolution by taking courses through the Harvard Law School Executive Education Corporation. Right now, she has been recognized nationally and locally for her leadership excellence and contribution by various organizations that are involved in conflict resolution. Excuse me.
And we wanted to share.
So, yes. So, Irene, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's very good to be here. And the speakers are just awesome. And I have to say that every single thing that was said previously just dittos me. So I'd like to start with the fact that, excuse me. Okay. We're talking about empathy here. And we know its definition. It's a mediation tool that we use to help us take in another person's point of view through listening and asking questions for clarification. And that allows us to take that information and process it through our lens, and we make sense of it. As we process this information, though, we find that we can unconsciously either agree or disagree with a particular point of view or mindset, as I like to call it. And as you recall, the mouse under the elephant's foot, yes, it is a different point of view. And it can really be a deciding factor in the resolution if it is used inappropriately. Now, this point of view mindset can usually it's comprised of beliefs, behaviors, and emotions that we have experienced ourselves. And our challenge is, as mediators, is to be aware of these mindsets and to understand them as an unbiased observer. And we must resist bringing in our own point of view consciously using empathy. And we've heard this time and time again today. This means understanding, but not immersing ourselves in the mindsets brought in by the parties themselves. And we have to be very, very careful. We can unconsciously bring in our own beliefs, feelings, behaviors, while trying to be neutral, while showing empathy. But it can turn into a feeling what the other person is feeling, which is, of course, sympathy. And we have to remember, we are the observer, all right, not a participant in the mediation itself. Well, as mediators, we walk a fine line. We seek to simply understand the parties' mindsets using empathy as a useful tool to facilitate the mediation process. But as mediators trying to be neutral, it's important not to be drawn into the sympathy area, which is merely one short step away to the point that we lose focus. And when we lose focus, we've heard this morning, we cease to be neutral. Yes, one can argue that as mediators, we're not machines, we've got feelings, we're humans. And as we heard this morning, we are wired for connection, which is very, very true. And as peacemakers, it's our very nature to embrace empathy and compassion, and to use these critical characteristics to help the parties create an atmosphere of mutual understanding that eventually leads to a collaboratively structured resolution by the parties. Collaboratively means together, and that's our job as mediators. And not to be the participants, but be process facilitators. And that is so, so important. We need to be aware that there are instances when empathy on behalf of the mediators can hinder resolution. It's been said that a mediator mediation is a facilitated negotiation. I'm sure you've probably heard that before. And in that negotiation, if you look into it, in each one of your mediations, the goal is to build a mutual trust, to discover and share the what, the why of issues and positions, to determine the path to resolution together on behalf of the parties. And number three, sorry, I've got the wrong, well, here we build trust, issues and interests that we have to discover or help the parties discover, and to help them come up with a resolution. Okay. Now, the thing is that this requires this whole scenario here, the dynamics that are happening here in terms of the negotiation within the mediation. It's so important that we remember that this requires an unbiased observer and a process facilitator, and that is our job. And today I'd like to share some instances when using empathy, a critical and necessary component of conflict resolution, where it can actually be a hindrance in resolving conflicts if used inappropriately. First of all, there's a loss of impartiality and objectivity. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, by empathizing inappropriately, we can over-identify with one party unconsciously by recalling similar situations or experiences that we've had ourselves in our lives. When a mediator is too empathetic towards one party, or for lack of a better word, too empathetic, they may lose their objectivity. leading to a biased approach that can jeopardize sincere efforts to fully explore the issues and the interests at hand. You know, the whys and the whats. And if we do not do what we're supposed to do, we can really, really be seen as impartial, which is something a skilled, experienced mediator does not want to be. Then we have an emotional attachment that can happen. It's challenging to remain emotionally detached. I mean, we're all human beings. But because the mediator unconsciously can relate to an experience or issue personally, it can lead to personal biases and judgments that can impede the mediator from fully utilizing the skills necessary to help the parties come to an agreement. And that can also lead, again, I've talked about this earlier, the loss of neutrality and objectivity. It can be difficult to remain neutral, and this can lead unwillingly to taking sides, and it is indeed a fine line. But this can lead to further polarization and escalation of the conflict. So we as mediators have to be cognizant of that very fine dividing line between empathy and sympathy to be effective. And number 3, we've got the issue of misunderstanding and misinterpreting perspectives inappropriately. Empathy for one of the parties can lead to assuming that, you know, the other sides is going to act this way or going to say this, and that can really be unhelpful. This can lead to incorrect expectations, not only of either party, but the dynamics itself, and misinterpretations. And these can derail the resolution process. There is a lack of assertiveness. Empathy can make it challenging to be assertive and even forceful when necessary. When one of the parties becomes very combative, or the behavior is totally inappropriate, it can be difficult in setting necessary boundaries during the mediation when you are sort of leaning, you know, to one side and sort of let it maybe sort of look the other way a little bit, or perhaps not standing up for one of the parties that needs to get back to center. And this can prolong the conflict if this is not taken care of. There's delayed or action avoidance is what we're talking about here. And this can really sacrifice the discovery of issues, of what's really going on, if we don't fully engage into the process. Let's focus on emotions rather than what's really important is really key. Now, there's a means to an end. We need to use empathy to help us understand. Don't lose sight of what's really important. And remember, empathy is one step away from sympathy. And it's a valuable tool, but be careful how it is used. And we as mediators are the drivers of these parties' emotions, feelings, and perspectives. And we need to address their need to be heard with a purposeful, fruitful dialogue that maintains a balance between empathy and objectivity to ensure a successful resolution. And it's good being here. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts on this.
Linda, you're muted.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Irene, so much for giving your time and knowledge today at the summit. So again, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to turn this back over to Kat.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you so much to all of our amazing speakers, and most recently, Deanna and Irene. There was so much wisdom and insight shared here today, and I could see some wonderful comments in the chat, and I hope you all have been checking those out, and also noticing that Edwin and Wendy have been posting links to the bios for the different presenters where you can reach out to them directly, and also to where you can get the recording of this summit at a later date. And I want you also to please notice that there's a link to a feedback form that Edwin has posted in the chat, and it will mean the world to us if you will each take a moment or two out of your day and fill that out for us and let us know what really worked for you. And if there's places that we can polish the summit apple, let us know where they are, because we are always looking for ways to be of better service to you. So there were no questions posted in the chat, so we won't have a Q&A segment at this time. If you all have questions that come up as we go through the next phase of today's summit, you can still put them in chat and we will answer them after the summit. It will come out with, those answers will come out with the summit recording. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to move into the amazing experience of empathy circles. And so I encourage you to stay with us and participate in the unique experience of feeling deeply heard by another person. And our co-host, Linda Bass, is going to lead us through the Empathy Circle segment. And a reminder for those of you who are facilitating the Empathy Circles, please put that in your name, in your participant identity, so that we can recognize who is going to be facilitating those circles today. Linda, I'm going to hand it off to you to take us through this wonderful experience. And don't forget to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. I have someone doing lawn service outside, so I apologize if you hear the lawnmower going off. But we're getting to the fun part now. We've gotten a lot of information this morning, and very good reminders for a lot of mediators that may be attending this summit. So if we're about to transfer or transition into breakout rooms, and Edwin will handle that. But if you, some housekeeping issues, if you are going to serve as a facilitator today, if you would put ECF by your name. And the summit so far has been recorded. When we go into the breakout rooms, it's only one room that will be recorded. If you do not want to be recorded, put in Aura by your name so everyone would know what room to put you in or not put you in. So if you don't want to be recorded in the breakout room, put in Aura by your name. Now, what is the empathy circle? Empathy, the circle is I call it, it's a process that teaches you what I call intentional listening. In mediation, we in part of the training, we discuss active listening. Well, to me, empathy circles gives you an opportunity to practice a deeper form of listening. I call it intentional listening because you have to be totally focused on what the person is saying. Now, this will give you an opportunity to speak and to be heard. And someone mentioned earlier, some of us think we're good listeners, and I thought I was until I started participating in this training. And some of us think we speak well, and I found out that words do matter, so you want to choose those. So you'll be able to speak and be heard, and actually also serve as a listener. And so let me explain to you how it works. It's called How To. There are going to be a facilitator, a speaker, a listener, and then you have the silent listeners. Now, the facilitator's role is to manage the room. Okay. The facilitator will start the circle by modeling the behavior or modeling the way the process works. So the facilitator will start off being a listener. They will ask someone to speak, and then the circle starts after then. Now, so you have the facilitator that's managing the room that will be the first listener. Then you have the speaker. Now, the speaker we will provide a topic for the speaker, or you can speak on whatever is on your mind today. When you speak, we ask that you speak in small chunks because our brains can only hold so much, retain so much. And you want to speak in small chunks in order to give the listener an opportunity to rephrase or reflect back to you what you said. And we ask the listeners, when possible, use the speaker's words. And you do this reflection or rephrasing without judgment, criticism, or asking questions or anything. You just, whether you agree or not, as someone said earlier, understanding is not agreeing. So it's all about being heard and letting the person know that they're being heard. So whether you agree or not, just reflect back to them what they said. And then, so that's the speaker speaks for a certain amount of time. The facilitator will let you know on a specific topic or whatever is alive for you today. You speak in small chunks, giving the listener an opportunity to rephrase back to you or reflect back to you. And if they don't do it or don't say it the way you said it or the way you intended it to be heard, it's okay to say, no, that's not what I said, and repeat again. Again, like I said, words do matter. So you want to make sure that you're delivering the message that you want to deliver. So, and then, so we have the facilitator managing the room, the speaker speaking in small chunks on whatever topic they want to speak on, the listener reflecting or rephrasing, using the words, the speaker's words as much as possible with no judgment, no criticism. Do not ask questions. You're just reflecting back what is said. And then you have the other people in the room that are silent listeners. So you don't grunt, nod your head, make facial expressions in terms of whether you agree or not. You are the silent listener. This process will allow each person in the room an opportunity to speak and an opportunity to be heard. Because once you finish, the listener, like I say, the facilitator will model the behavior and they will be the first listener. So you get a chance to see how the reflection goes. And then the listener becomes the speaker. And we just keep going around the room until everyone has had an opportunity to speak and an opportunity to listen. Do we have any questions? I can't see everybody, so you have to say yay or nay or holler out. I hope I made myself clear. When you get in the circle, the facilitator will probably go over this with you again. So I believe I turn this over to Edwin. And he
Okay. We have, I've been making the rooms, and at this point it gets a little bit, some people will drop out and I kind of have to remake the room. So we're going to go for about an hour and 20 minutes in the empathy circle. Then we're going to have 15 minutes to debrief as a full group. And we're going to have about 6 people in the room. And at the very beginning, there might be a little bit of, some people may drop out, and I'll kind of keep moving people into rooms so that we can sort of fill it. So let me see. And also in the chat, you can see the empathy circle topic, which is, why is empathy essential in conflict resolution, or whatever is on your mind? And you'll have 4-minute turns. We have facilitators for each room. And let's see.
Edwin,
Yeah.
excuse me, if they drop off accidentally, we will admit them back into that particular room, right?
Correct. We'll try to get you back into the room that you dropped at. If you drop in, you'll come into the main room, and we'll try to get you back into the room that you were in. Just remember who your facilitator was. And I'm just got one more thing to set up here.
And thank you, people, for staying for the circle. It's going to be really interesting for those that have not participated before. You're going to have fun.
It's a rich experience. It really is. Yeah.
Gonna feel heard.
Moment. Okay, I think we're set. And like I said, we'll go to about a quarter to the hour. So that's an hour and 20 minutes or so. And if you have trouble, we'll have Kathleen will be in the main room. And I'll be in room 1 with you, Linda, and that one will be recorded. And here we go. Oh,
Yeah.
fun.
Have a wonderful, empathetic experience, everyone.
You're about to be beamed up.
Here we go.
Scotty,
Beaming.
Scotty.
There we go. There we go. Yay. Yeah, I'm going to go to room 1 and we'll be recording that room. So,
Okay. All right, so you're going to stay there and I'll just manage the main room.
right.
Okay, got it.
And if you have trouble, you can come into room 1 to ask me, or I can give you host privileges, I guess. Yeah.
Party right now. And that's why I was gonna have to, I'm sorry.
Okay, Vernita. Edwin, are you recording or
Yes.
am I?
I
Okay.
am recording.
All right. Okay. This is how, for those that have not been in a circle before, and Rob and Rosa, I know Vernita. So Rob and Rosa, welcome. Have you participated in an empathy circle before?
Yes, I have.
Oh, great. So we have experienced people, so I don't have to go through the deal again. Okay. So I will start off, and Vernita, it's really helpful if we can see you if you want to participate in the circle. If you just want to listen, that's okay. Okay.
I'm gonna have to leave in a little
Okay.
bit. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm going to start off by being the first listener, and oh, we have another person, Tina. Okay, is someone else coming in?
No.
Oh, Tina. Okay, Tina, here we go. Welcome. I'm going to start off. Have you participated in the empathy circle before?
Yes.
Tina. Okay, great. We have some experienced people. So I'm going to start off as the facilitator, being the first listener. I will, everyone will have 4 minutes to speak. You don't have to do your whole 4 minutes, speak the whole 4 minutes, but you have 4 minutes to speak. So feel free to use that. And I will be timing it. And if my timer will start doing what it wants to do and do what I want to do, it would be great. So I'm going to start off by asking Bob to speak to me for 4 minutes on the topic, why is empathy essential in conflict resolution, or whatever is alive for you today? Speak in small chunks. I will time it. And then when your time is up, I will hold up my sign that will say time to let you know that time is up. And I sorted it out so I wouldn't be doing this. And here I am looking for it.
Oh, it's all good.
Okay. All right. Here you go. Bob, are you ready?
Sure.
You will speak to me. Okay.
Yep.
And I will reflect. All right.
Ready?
Yes.
Go. Okay, so hi, my name's Rob. I use he, him pronouns. The role of empathy in conflict resolution. I mean, I see empathy as a crucial ability that fuels so many skills that we need. And as it comes to conflict resolution, that's all about compromise isn't, well, yeah, there's compromise, there's collaboration that's involved. And
Okay. Now, Bob, what you said is that you go with the he, she pronoun, and you found that empathy is an important skill in conflict
Yes.
resolution.
Yes. And my first name is Rob, as in Robert.
Oh,
You've
Rob,
been,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
you've been calling me
Rob.
Bob, so
Yes, the writing is so small on these screens, so I apologize. Rob.
it's okay. Thank you, Linda. And yes, you got that correct. And that so empathy is this critical skill that we use. It's critical ability that we use that empowers skills, including in conflict resolution. And if you were to break down, as some of the speakers were, the different aspects of conflict resolution, empathy feeds into all of those things.
Okay, and you're saying that empathy is an important tool or skill to be employed in conflict resolution. And one of the things that the speakers that seemed to be constant throughout the speakers' presentations this morning was the need for empathy.
Right. Yes, that's correct. And I think the thing that I'm mindful of is I think about conflict resolution, peace in the Middle East, big issues of our time, but I also then think about conflict resolution, dispute with my neighbor about something or within my own households. And, are there so my question then becomes, are there different ways of engaging or levels of empathy, or is it really all kind of the same principles?
Okay, so you're thinking about, when you think about peace, you're thinking about the conflict in the Middle East, you're thinking about possible conflict even at home in your own family. And you're just wondering about the whether there are different levels of
Yes,
conflict.
different levels of like, does empathy show up differently, or is it really the same, just at a kind of greater scale?
Oh, does it show up? Does empathy show up differently, whether it's the major war in the Middle East? Yes.
So interpersonal versus larger social groups needing to, or societal groups needing to resolve conflict.
So depending, what I heard you say, depending on the conflict, you're wondering if empathy shows up differently for the different conflicts that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Rob.
Yes.
And so now the listener, which I was the listener, becomes the speaker. And I would like to speak to Rosa. Did I get that right, Rosa?
Yes, Linda, it's Rosa. Pleasure
Okay.
to listen to you.
All right. I am a mediator and an arbitrator. And both of those jobs, if you will, involves empathy. I need empathy, whether I'm mediating a dispute or just listening to the parties, and then we'll give an award.
Yeah, so in your work as a mediator and an arbitrator, you find empathy really useful, regardless of which of those two roles you're in. Is that close?
Yes, that's exactly what I said. Because you do have to listen, and in both roles, listen without judgment or criticism. Because I'm interested in where the person is coming from and the message that they're trying.
Now,
Hi.
so Tara, would you like to join one of the empathy circles?
It's too late to
Sure.
join. If she
Oh.
wasn't in one, it's too disruptive. If you come late, you can't join a circle.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Good information. I didn't realize that. Thank you, Edwin.
Yeah.
I can just stay here. That's okay.
Yeah, you can just talk with Kathleen or.
I'm happy to visit with you. Yeah. And Edwin, are you going to take care of signaling the rooms when they're
I will. Yeah, I'm going to go back to room 1. I just want to be sure everything's okay. We're recording this right now, so.
And so you'll take care of timing. I don't have to think about it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Stories from each party, and you find out that each party has a slightly different perspective on the issue at hand.
Yeah, so the first thing is this term family is a bit of a misnomer because it's actually family splitting up or divorcing or children being hurt, right? And so these stories are very, very emotional. and people have very different perspectives or somewhat different perspectives on what's happening. And so it's very hard to take a risk.
Somebody asked for help here. Was there an issue?
No, sorry, that was just me playing with my,
Okay,
I was
yep,
looking at what
okay.
that was. So sorry, Edwin.
Yeah.
I apologize, everybody, sorry.
And I see Edwin is back with us again. Do you need something from me, Edwin, or you're just popping in? Okay. Yeah. So anyway, Tara, we then heard.
And so as you do that, that's when you start to realize the different perspectives. And often it's a matter of miscommunication that has led to the differences.
Yes, and that this miscommunication can occur whether it's in a family situation or in civil, which is usually businesses, a consumer versus a business or a business versus a consumer. People have different perspectives. As someone once told me, if you want to know the truth, you hear his side, her side, and somewhere in the middle is the truth, because everybody has a different perspective. But you have to listen to not only understand where they're coming from, but understand what is important to them in that particular situation. Again, be it family or civil. And my time is up. I will let you reflect.
Yeah. So civil is usually related to business, either business and consumers or like that. And there too, though, people have different perspectives, and you really need to listen to understand what is important to them.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And so now you get to pick someone to listen to you.
Yes. Tina, would you be willing to listen to me?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to just take a moment to see what wants to come. I was struck during the presentations by how it seems like sometimes people define empathy differently. And so I think I just want to say a little bit about what it means to me. Would you like to reflect back?
Thank you, Rosa. What I heard you say is that you were struck by what you heard so far in the summit about the different perspectives of empathy.
Yeah, and so I want to say a little bit about what it means to me. And I just want to say that I loved it when somebody said, I think what we're talking about is caring empathy, because I feel like if we put an adjective in front of it, then it kind of specifies. Like some people talk about empathy, how you can understand what another person is saying in order to then manipulate them. And I think that's possible, but that's definitely not what we're talking about here, right? Yeah. So I'll pause there. Would you be willing to?
Okay, so what I heard you say is that when listening to the other perspectives of what empathy is, there was a moment where someone mentioned empathy as caring, but also in that vulnerability participants may be taken advantage of by some people who don't use the process in a good faith way.
Yeah. Thank you. So I like to talk about communicative empathy because I really this kind of empathy that Edwin does in the empathy circles, that's I feel it's really understudied in the world out there, and people like researchers often tend to pay attention to empathy as like an internal construct, something that just happens inside yourself rather than an interaction, a communicative interaction. Yeah.
Okay, so you were speaking about distinguishing the difference between how Edwin's approach, his communicative approach to empathy, is different from what is typically found in research. That making a connection and communicating is the focus with the type of empathy practice that you've experienced with Edwin.
Yeah, thank you. So anyway, so I'm just excited to see how Edwin is turning on the world to communicative empathy, and people are really getting a chance to experience it and practice it.
So what I hear is you're very excited about this process, this communicative empathy process, and that the potential for more people to learn about this practice on a global scale would be wonderful.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I just want to say something, Tina. Your voice is coming across kind of gargled. So I don't know what's, if you're too close or too far away, I'm not sure, but just FYI.
Okay, can you hear me better if I'm away?
It didn't sound.
Is it better?
Now it is.
That's good right there.
Okay, so maybe I'm gonna move back a tad bit because my speaker is actually in the computer. I don't have a.
Okay.
Okay, so is this better?
Yes.
I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, I'm going to select Rob.
Okay.
Okay.
So
And go ahead.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so the question is why is empathy important in conflict resolution? So I think the ability to understand and relate to another person's feelings is important. But I also feel that it is important for the mediator to maintain neutrality at all times and to recognize their presence, being present, how important it is in the process.
Thank you. So what I heard was that you believe that empathy is important, not just the relation or the connection, not as much into the feelings, and because the mediator needs to stay neutral at all times. Did I get that right? I feel like I bungled that a little.
Well, yes, that you got the key point. The point is neutrality is very important. We can make the connection and have empathy in the process, but I truly believe that it's very important to understand you're not a participant in the process. You're facilitating the process. There's
Okay. So yes, so what I heard you say was that neutrality is important, that you're to remember you're facilitating the process, not to become a participant. So it's I guess, yeah, I'll stop. I don't want to interpret a thought to it.
I always had to try to keep my balance with my mediator brain. Remember, I'm facilitating because I'm like, okay, I know what that is.
And then I want to build on it.
I think we all have grown as we experience so many things in life. We forget how important listening to hear is, and we tend to listen to respond because we're used to being under attack in a way, or questioned or judged. So we really don't hear each other.
So what I heard was that it's important that we take the time to listen to hear, because so much of the time we are now listening to respond because we feel like we're under attack most of the time. Did I get that right?
Well, first instinct is to be ready. And so I think what the beauty of this process is, as I'm trying to become better at it, is that am I really hearing what is being said to me, or am I listening, so that I can come back with a quick response to outmeasure what they said. So it's kind of like a competition, I guess, in a way.
So you're resisting the urge to just be ready. And I heard that as to smack back, I guess, and instead to listen. And the beauty of this process is that you are listening rather than attacking back.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Exactly. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Edwin, are you participating?
Yep,
Or are you just
I'm
observing
here.
us?
Everybody's a participant.
Okay, so I guess since you haven't listened yet, I'll let you.
Okay, listening.
Linda, you want us to keep going on the same question?
Or whatever's alive for you.
Yeah, so I was resonating with things that both Tina and Rosa and Linda were saying about, and kind of dropping into this sort of mediator in between place from what I was setting up as big global conflict and having a spat with my neighbor, which I guess could turn into litigation needing a mediator. But this notion of taking the time, and a lot of in my work, I'm trying to help people understand to create space so that they respond rather than react.
So in your work with empathy, you're trying to have people find the space where they can respond to someone instead of be reactive to them.
Right. I saw Adam Grant posted something recently that it just kind of crystallized some of it, where he talked about how impulsive we are, and we're just constantly having these impulsive, instinctive reactions to things. And in which I was like, yes, that's exactly right. And what I try to do, I talk about taking a curious breath to help people create some space, in order, both in your lungs, and by doing that, it creates some space somehow in your brain to then actually think about how you're going to respond.
So people just respond to someone else, but you're trying to create a space, breathe, give it some thought about what you're going to say.
Right. And I call that taking a curious breath.
The curious breath is what you're calling that.
Yes. I'm so curious to ask Linda why she prefers civil versus, or business versus civil litigation, but I'll save that for another time.
So you're just having curiosity about why Linda likes civil versus what litigation?
Business versus
business. Oh, like
personal litigation, or mediation, I should say.
So why she likes business versus civil litigation?
Yes. I don't have anything else to add, so I will yield my time.
All right, I'll speak to Linda. And you're muted.
I'm ready.
Yeah, sort of in just some things that came up for me is there's always a definition of empathy, and sort of building on what Rosa said about the relational. I think that's sort of in the definition, the that empathy is a relationship, of mutual relationship is sort of the core of it. Yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about the definition or people's definition of empathy, and piggybacking on something Rosa said about it being a relational construct.
Yeah, exactly. So here in the empathy circle, I always try to define it within the context of what we're actually doing in the empathy circle. So we're all listening to each other. So the empathy is the fullness of what all five of us are doing, with listening to each other. So that is like a body, there's an arm and a leg and so forth, but the body is the fullness of a person physically. So the same way with empathy, it's the fullness of all the relationships.
Okay, so you see empathy as the fullness of all relationships, and you use like our body as an example, arms, legs, whatever. It's all, but when you put it all together, it's all whole, it's all one. And you when you're talking about empathy, you're defining it within the context of where we are. And in this room, we're all displaying empathy as we participate.
Exactly. And usually empathy gets defined as an individual empathizing with someone, and that would be like an arm, just a piece of the whole. So I think it changes the whole way you sort of look at empathy. A lot of the criticisms of empathy are sort of based on that narrow, individualistic, singular understanding of empathy.
And you're saying that what I hear you say is that a lot of people, when they define or speak on empathy or speak about empathy, they're speaking about in a narrow context, in the individual singular context, as opposed to like one arm, as opposed to the whole. Yeah, the whole person.
It's like also, I do all the listening and nobody listens to me, so empathy is terrible, right? It's like, no, it's bad because the other person's not empathizing with you, and it's not a mutually empathic relationship. So it's not the problem with empathy, it's an actual empathy deficit that's the problem.
Okay, so it's not empathy that's the problem. You say it's the deficit. So one is speaking and speaking and speaking, and nobody is listening. And so it's a mutual dance or relationship that's going on. So empathy is not the problem. It's the it's that missing piece that makes non-empathetic.
And the other was, I think I saw the conversation. I don't know if it's about neutrality. I mean, a lot of the mediators talk about neutrality. I don't think empathy is neutral. I think it's a point of view of its own. So it's not like it's like there's anger is a point of view, judgment is a point of view, empathy is a point of view. It's not neutral. So when somebody says, I go and do a mediation, I say, I'm here strongly advocating for empathy. I'm totally biased towards empathy. It's like, that is what I'm valuing. So I think that's a different framing too, from the neutrality. Because I don't think you can be neutral. Yeah.
So you're saying that you cannot be neutral when you're exhibiting or demonstrating empathy, that empathy is like an emotion like anger. So it's not neutral. It's
a way of being. I would say it's a way of being.
A way of being. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I feel heard.
Interesting. Okay. That was interesting. I will go back to Rob. And first of all, Rob, I want to respond to that curious breath that you had about why I prefer civil over family mediation. Family mediation is very emotional because it's dealing with people's lives and their future and how they're going to respond to it, or how their life is going to be. And so it's a real challenge for me to sit there and remain neutral. And when I say neutral, not giving one party more attention or agreeing with that person, because I believe understanding, and I say this all the time, understanding is not agreeing. So I'm listening to understand, not to agree. So when it comes to, you're muted. You mute.
Sorry. Thank you. Let me, so I hold on.
And
to
I
this.
apologize. Y'all get to going. Okay.
No, it's all good. It's good. So you prefer the, I guess, civil over family because family is really affecting people's lives. The outcome is going to directly
Yeah.
impact people's lives, and it's more it's harder to remain neutral and not sort of take a side or have emotions come into play. Did I hear that correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then keep going.
And when it's civil, it's usually all about the money, all about the Benjamins. And that is, that's not emotional to me. It's just, it's money.
Okay, so when it's civil, it's all about the Benjamins, and that is not an emotional situation for you.
Yes. Because, and I state, even in civil, you need to be empathetic. You have the landlord and the tenant. The landlord, you know, needs the money to pay maybe the mortgage, and the tenant is just out of job right now and wants to pay but can't pay. And so when you hear the stories and hear what's behind the scenes, like I say, then you can you're like, okay, I see, I got you, I understand. And and as I said earlier, it's important. You want to pay your rent. The landlord wants you to stay in the apartment.
So there is emotion in the civil because when you hear the stories, you get under the surface and you start to hear the stories. The landlord is needing to pay the mortgage and wants to pay that. The tenant is dealing with something and maybe wants to pay the rent but cannot because of a certain situation. And so you're able to then utilize that where both people can realize that there are good intentions or they want to be able to do the right thing for the other.
Exactly. And I tell people, the way I describe empathy is you're stepping into another person's shoes, but you can't step into my shoes unless you take your shoes off. And then once you are out of my shoes, you can put your shoes back on. That means you don't carry it with you. You just understand my perspective. You don't have to agree.
So what you tell people when you define empathy for them is that it's about putting on another person's pair of shoes, but you can't put those shoes on without taking your own shoes off first. And then afterward, you have to take those shoes off to step back into your own shoes. And so for you in doing your job, that's what you're doing is changing your shoes frequently.
Exactly. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
Tina, do you want to?
Oh, I'm so happy I'm here today. I love all of these little gifts of learning that I'm getting today. So
Okay, so
I appreciate that. I'm a lifelong learner. I love it.
So Tina will be the listener and Rob will be the speaker.
Yes.
Okay, you want Rob to be the speaker? Okay.
And you can speak on whatever is alive for you or how empathy impacts conflict resolution.
Sounds good.
So
why is empathy essential in conflict resolution?
Yeah. So I love so I'll start. I thank you, Linda. I love the shoe analogy. I often talk about you got to take your own shoes off before you put on the other pair of shoes. I have not done it though with the reverse back, and I find there's just like I guess when empathy is so instinctive and it is this intuitive ability, it's this inherent ability that we are all born with and we have. And so trying to bring light to how to use it requires these analogies and descriptions. And I'll pause there so Tina can repeat.
Okay, so what I heard, Rob, thank you, is that he really appreciates these examples that were provided, particularly to walk. If you want to walk in my shoes, you have to take your shoes off and put them back on. And that is a way of modeling the process, and that you really appreciate what you've learned in terms of what you know, what you've been doing in your own practice of peacemaking.
Yes, and how I coach and talk about empathy when I'm giving presentations and trainings to others, and I'm constantly thinking up or drawing from others ways of talking about empathies to help make it relatable. So I find the more people can relate and understand what empathy is and how to use it and what it isn't, they're able to then harness it and utilize it better and more effectively themselves.
Okay, so what I heard that these examples, these rich examples have been helping you to, in your practice, your teaching, your trainings, to be able to come up with relatable examples which are more simplified and easier for people, participants, to process and relate to and make that connection, that you find this, the opportunity to learn as well. A really rich experience helping you grow in your
Yes. Yes, I feel heard.
I hear that. Okay, so with that in mind, I think in terms of neutrality, which has been ingrained in my brain, that
Who are you speaking to?
oh, I'm sorry. I guess that would help, wouldn't it?
We're all listening, but
We're all listening, yes.
I only got a little bit of this coffee in me. I'm working on it. Okay, Rosa, you've been quiet.
Yes, happy to listen.
I would love for you to listen to me. Thank you. So I love, as I mentioned earlier, it has really been a gift to be in here in this space today. I appreciate it very much. I love Rob's example of of curious breaths. So I've been practicing for the pause for a long time as part of self-regulation, self-reflection as I grow and hopefully become a better person. I see that as I'm learning empathy.
I'm going to invite you to pause right there, if you wouldn't mind, so that I could reflect back.
Yes.
Yeah, so you were saying that you really have enjoyed being here. And then you're really appreciating this expression of taking a curious breath that Rob offered, because you have been working with the pause a lot for self-regulation and managing stress. Is that close?
That is correct. And the reason why I think pause is so important, it gives the mind just a few minutes to try to hear what was said. And I am seeing the pause as an important part of this empathy circle. So I really appreciate that, because you have to model it to understand it. And as we speak, and I have to stop, not and give bite-sized information, because I typically will give you a whole entire paragraph. I'm relearning.
Yeah. So you're enjoying seeing us practicing the pause as part of the empathy circle, because you're feeling how it really lets in, it gives ourselves a moment to let in what we've heard. And also when we're speakers, you were saying you many of us have a tendency to give whole paragraphs. And so the pause is kind of a reminder, helpful reminder. Please continue.
Yes. It's this empathy circle is teaching me how to facilitate a conversation where I'm providing opportunity for me to be heard and for the other person to be able to listen.
Yeah, so you're seeing how this can help conversations be more effective because each person gets heard and each person is able to listen more easily because they're not having to listen for a huge long time.
That is correct. So I think that is important. I love also Linda's example of the shoe as a relatable example, because you can visualize stepping out of your shoes and trying to step into another. And that is empathy. That is how I see empathy, being able to connect with empathy by taking my own shoes off and stepping into yours. I think it's important to understand that.
You're finding it very useful and relatable for others about the stepping out of one's own shoes in order to step into another's. Yeah.
So, yes. So I was thinking about listening deficit that Edmund mentioned. Okay. Thank you. And I feel heard.
There's something about
No, just wrap it up, Tina. I didn't want to cut you off, but yeah, finish your sentence.
I was thinking about Edwin's listening deficit and then how poignant that is when you think about it, when we don't hear each other. Just imagine that deficit building and building. You can just imagine at some point that conflict is going to erupt.
Yeah, so you're seeing the listening deficit not as something static, but as something that keeps growing and growing until it can erupt if we're not dealing with it by doing listening practices. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. I feel heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Edwin, would you be willing to listen to me?
Yes, listening.
Yeah, so I just think this is a brilliant topic, right? How crucial empathy, relational empathy, communicative empathy, understanding people in the way that they want to be understood is for mediation.
Yeah, so you really think this is a brilliant topic, just how empathy relates to mediation?
Yeah. And I do want to repeat again the understanding people in the way that they want to be understood. Because I think, well, these folks at the Center for Understanding and Conflict have been talking about it as looping. And I get really excited because people have been writing about looping and taking their work further. So I feel like he's kind of another person who, or they are another set of people who are really helping this practice get out there more in the world.
So there's a group that they look at this as they call it looping. And it sounds like they're kind of doing research and sort of expanding the practice.
Well, they've written a couple of books, which are really good. And they're not so much doing research as people are interviewing them and spreading the concept of looping. Like people are looking to them as experts. They're lawyers who do a lot of mediation work. And when they're doing the mediation, they bring the clients and the lawyers in the room. So it's pretty distinctive. And they do a lot of reflecting back, and they call it looping because of this little last bit at the end of checking for understanding, like, is that close, or is that right, or so it's like a feedback loop. It's not just me saying, oh, what I heard you say is duh, but then we pause and it's like, is that close? Did I get it? Is there more? And so that's why they call it looping.
Okay, so this process, they bring the clients and the lawyers together into a dialogue process, and then they have a check to say, did you hear me, or do you feel that you were heard? And that little check is what they're calling the looping. And this process that they're sort of spreading it, and people are interviewing them about this process, and they're sort of getting the word out about it.
Absolutely. And I just want to clarify that what they call the looping is the reflecting back plus the checking at the end. So it includes the reflecting back. Yeah.
So there's a reflection and a checking, and that's what the
Yeah.
loop is, the
Yeah.
check.
Yeah. So if you see looping out there, then you'll know what they're talking about.
Yeah, now we know what looping means.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's basically what we do here. Like, it's not so different. You know, what do they say? Old wine and new bottles, whatever. But it's good. It's good because it spreads the concept.
Yeah, it's very similar to what we're doing here, and you're excited about it. It's spreading the concept, getting it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's almost it, but let me take a moment and see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, I really, I just want to emphasize, for me, this is how I talk about it when I teach and train and all that, but there's a difference between taking sides and taking all sides. And that word all is super important. And as I wrote in the chat earlier, it comes from family therapy, because when we're working with families, like, everybody wants to feel like you understand them and you get them. Right?
Yeah, so the way you just want to clarify that you see it as taking all sides. There's, taking a side versus taking all sides, and that's what you're going for.
Cool. Thanks so much. I feel heard.
Rob, can I speak to you?
Yes.
Yeah, I was trying to go with those metaphors of, standing in someone else's shoes. And I like metaphors. And it's like, oh, let's have a little metaphor. Let's kind of play with the metaphor. What can we do with that metaphor?
So you like the metaphor of, the standing in others' shoes and some of the other things. And so you're thinking about, what can we do? How can we play with metaphors?
Yeah, so it could be like, empathy is always going barefoot. Right? It's like you're down to your core, your core skin. So empathy is like going barefoot.
So it's like empathy is going barefoot because you're down to your core and down to your bare skin.
Yeah, and that you can take all sides, like Rosa says. You can put on all the shoes, like all the, you don't have to take your shoes off because you're already barefoot, and you're just wearing, you can wear all the shoes.
So because you're barefoot, you can wear any shoes and all the shoes that you come across.
And then there's also the aspect of going barefoot, like, walking on cool grass. I'm kind of playing with that metaphor of the felt experience, that you can walk on pebbles, you can, walk on the grass, you can walk on hot surfaces. So I'm just sort of playing with the metaphor, like, how does that sort of relate to empathy?
So playing with the metaphor a bit more, it can be like walking on cool grass in bare feet, walking on pebbles, walking on hot stone. So what are those different things that empathy enables you to do?
Yeah, I guess there's the aspect of protection, right? Shoes have a protective quality to them. So, maybe you're just more sensitive with empathy, that you don't need that protection.
And so there's this need for protection that the shoes can provide. So maybe with empathy, you don't need the protection.
Yeah, I'm just pushing. I'm pushing the metaphor.
You're playing with the metaphor.
Yeah, I'm just sort of, it's just whatever comes spontaneously for the metaphor. Yeah, so I'm not sure where else to go with it. I do think, yeah, going in, putting yourself in the shoes, and the shoes, do they fit? or are they tight? Are they loose? I don't know how that sort of fits into empathy.
Is there something with the way that the shoes fit being too tight or loose, and how that might play into, or could we utilize that as part of the metaphor around the shoes and empathy?
And that empathy with nature, right? It's like being sensitive to the world around us. Again, with that sensitivity of, that nice feeling of walking in cool, moist grass.
And the feeling that empathy enables the connection to nature and feeling nature. So like the cool, moist grass, perhaps there's something to incorporate there.
Yeah, and I just think, how does that relate to mediation? Yeah, I guess it's just taking all sides is one thing, and the other part is, as somebody said, you don't, you're, as a mediator, you stand out. I just did a mediation day before yesterday, and we do the restorative empathy circle, and it's like I'm a participant, right? There's not like, hey, there's this difference of a mediator versus participant. So I like the mediator is not really a mediator, but just holding the process and being an active participant, just like in an empathy circle, everybody's a participant.
So linking it back into mediation, it's you did a mediation recently, and you had a restorative circle at the end, and the mediator was participating, but with empathy, you're kind of standing outside of the.
No, you are. I think it's your participant versus that concept of being detached. Yeah.
So you're a participant versus the idea of being detached. So that's actually contrary to what others were saying.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel heard.
Great. Who haven't I know? Rosa, we haven't talked yet or listened.
Happy to listen to you.
So I'll I like the idea of the empath is walking the world barefoot with the ability to put on others' shoes kind of at any moment as they're connecting with other people. And I think that's an interesting, I think about a superhero, or if I think about empathy as a superpower, and you're like, okay, well, what's my superpower? What's my costume? And, the boots are always, what do the boots look like? And here there wouldn't be any. They'd be barefoot.
So if empathy were a superpower and there was an empathy superhero, his costume would be bare feet.
His or her costume would be bare feet. Yes. Her costume
would be bare feet.
Yeah, it's going back to what Edwin was saying at the end about the mediator and neutrality, or not being a participant. I think there's I'm not a mediator, so I can't fully speak to it, but I would imagine you're still picking up the energy that somebody is, of the situation and what you're mediating. Whether it's the emotions around the landlord-tenant, as Linda was describing, or it's another situation. So I'd be curious to understand how mediators actually let go of what they're hearing in a session, because I would imagine even if it's civil, like, it gets kind of intense at times.
Yeah, so you didn't say these words, but it sounds like you're talking about self-care as a mediator. Like, how do you let go of some of those intense emotions that you might be in afterwards?
Exactly. And I feel heard. I will leave that question out there.
Okay. I'm going to ask Linda, would you be willing to be my listener?
Yes, I'm here for you.
Thank you. So what's been resounding in my head for the last little bit is the title to a book that I'm still in the middle of reading it, but it's by this woman, Alicia Juarrero, who is a Cuban American philosopher, I guess. Anyway, so I'll pause there.
Okay, I'm not going to try to say her name because I won't get it, but you want to talk about this book that you read recently. It's the author is female Cuban activist.
I think I'm not sure. I think she's a philosopher.
Philosopher.
But she's written about complexity. And the title of her book is Context Changes Everything.
She speaks about complexity, and the theme in her book is context. Thank you. Changes everything.
Yeah. And the reason I was thinking of that is because when Edwin was speaking about situations where you can facilitate an empathy circle and be a participant, I'm thinking about a lot of situations where I facilitate or mediate, where it's really important that I not be a participant. And I really see the value of both approaches. And for me, it really depends on the context, like what's the situation.
So you're thinking about what Edwin said, and basically you're saying it's the context, it's the situation that determines the, I don't want to say level of empathy, but determines the empathy.
Well, that determines the ability to position myself as more or less of a participant in the process.
To position yourself as to whether you're going to be a participant or facilitator in the process. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes, I don't mean in an empathy circle. I mean, if I'm doing an empathy circle, I'm a participant. But sometimes when I'm facilitating using other approaches, it's really important that I hold back my own perspectives.
Okay. And there are occasions when you are the facilitator, which means you hold back your perspective. You're facilitating and not participating.
Although if I'm doing an empathy circle, I can facilitate the empathy circle and also be a participant. But that's different.
And in the context of an empathy circle, you can do both. You can be the facilitator and a participant.
Yeah. And so that's what made me think of the title of this book, Context Changes Everything.
Okay. And that's what made you think of the book, Context Changes Everything. Context. Okay. Interesting.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm marinating on that. Context changes everything. Okay. Tina, would you listen as you unmute?
Yes, I'm happy to.
Okay. You know, we've been talking about mediation, and I guess I don't want to assume, but it sounds like we're talking about it in a formal situation where as we mediate every day, all day.
So it sounds like you said that we're talking about the context of empathy.
Mediation.
And how we mediate every day.
Every day, all day.
Every day.
And I was the guy from Nigeria was working with children, and I think that is so important today.
And you were acknowledging that Chijioke's work with children is really very important today.
Yes, we need to teach our children and model that as well, how to deal with conflict without violence.
So what I heard was it's very important that we teach our children how to engage with without violence,
Correct.
modeling nonviolence.
Yes, because they see it on TV. Some of them see it in their homes. It's on the news every night. Violence in response to conflict.
So what I'm hearing from you is there's a lot of exposure to violent content everywhere for children. And that makes it even more important that they learn processes like what's being taught by Gioki in Nigeria.
Yes, they need to, because when you empathize with a person, you're bonding with that person. And when their emotions are high, you can bring them down low by being empathetic.
When you are empathetic to a person in a process and their emotions are high, you're able to help them calm down and better understand what they're going through.
Yes, you know, the amygdala, the fight or flight is going, and if you meet their conflict with your conflict, they're going to stay there. That with the amygdala, the fight or flight.
Because their brain is in fight or flight response, it makes it more important for you, the mediator, to remain neutral so that you can help them to calm down.
Yeah. And this is especially true with parents and children. When our children are saying something to us or they don't agree with us, we want to automatically, respond rather than listening to what they're saying and why they are saying what they are saying.
Okay, so you find that the skills that we have as mediators help us to be able to listen to parents when they're not able to communicate with one another?
No, for them, this process is useful for parents dealing with their children. When their children don't agree or want something different from their parent, and my time is up.
Okay, so learning empathy is a way to help parents better communicate with their children.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And now it's your turn.
Go. Let me go back to Robert. Rob. So
yes, I'm here.
Along the lines of going back to taking your shoes off and walking in someone else's shoes. Of course, I'm barefoot now, actually. So when you said that, I did giggle. I think empathy is so important. So you asked how mediators are able to remain neutral. Well, it takes a lot of practice.
So you are barefoot at the moment, which made you chuckle when you heard that. And when it comes to that question of how are mediators able to remain neutral, it takes a lot of practice.
Yes, because some of the cases are so emotional and we feel compassion. And so compassion is a verb, it's action. So we can have compassion by sitting there and providing a safe space for participants to have self-determination. Because imagine sometimes people have never had the opportunity to be in control, to be able to make a decision.
I'll pause you right there. Thanks. So it's hard because the cases are emotional, but what you're doing is actually providing compassion, which is a verb, an action. And that compassion is holding space for somebody for their own self-determination, their ability to be able to speak and advocate for themselves because they maybe haven't had that opportunity before in their life. Did I get that right?
Yes. And I think empathy, to be able to walk in someone's shoes is very powerful. I think it's really important in terms of feeling heard. When the mediator can reflect or reframe what that emotion is that they're going through, is an opportunity for them to possibly better understand their own emotions and possibly begin to move forward, to get past where they're stuck.
So when the moderators or mediator is using empathy and they're reflecting what they're hearing, it's an opportunity for the other participant to really reflect on their own emotions, where they're coming from and where they maybe are getting stuck.
So with all the emotions that mediators experience in the process, holding neutrality helps the mediator remain present, because once I begin to experience their emotion of one party, then I would need to experience the emotion of the other party. But if I experience it, I may actually be able to relate to one more than the other experience, and that will lead to bias, and then also breaking my neutrality, the neutrality that's important to the process. But I do believe that is important for empathy.
So if you give in to the emotions or feel the emotions of one side, you're going to feel them on the other, but it could potentially lead you to side or have your bias to come out for one particular side, which then disrupts the actual process. And so that's why the neutrality is so critical, while still having empathy generally with both sides.
And since I'm an empath, I particularly have to be mindful.
And since you're an empath, you have to be particularly mindful. Definitely. Thank you.
I feel heard. Thank you.
Yes. Edwin, I saw you had flashed the time thing a little while ago. How
Yeah,
are
we
we
have
doing?
about, yeah, we could do one more turn, I think, if you want to take your turn.
Okay, Linda, would you like to?
4 minutes.
Sure.
So this has been really really eye-opening for me. I mean, I started sharing, I think, at the beginning of our time, and talked about, I'm worried about like war in the Middle East, and then how I'm going to like mediate with my husband about something. And you've all helped me see this kind of in-between area, and also how we use those skills across all the different levels.
So this has been interesting and fascinating. You started off by this circle. You started off by thinking, in terms of the Middle East, and now by participating in this, you can see where empathy can come into play, depending in different arenas, different situations.
Yes, and the idea of mediating at different sort of situations. I think I took it to the extreme. So for me, it was learning more about mediation.
Oh, so your concept or your thought when you came in was only what you call the extreme, your conflict resolution, big conflicts, as opposed to mediation.
Right, because my background is not in mediation. but is in moderating and listening to people. So, and researching. So it's a different use of empathy.
Okay, so that mediation is not your background. You're a researcher, you're a moderator, a listener.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So thank you all for that. I appreciate it. And that's all I've got.
And you're thanking everyone in the room, and and letting us know that you appreciate this experience. Okay.
Yes.
Edwin?
Yep, listening.
Okay, I just want to say this has been a good experience for me as well.
Yeah, it's been a good experience for you as well, just like with Rob.
Yeah, because as I say, we mediate, I think, every day as we go through our daily chores.
And you're seeing mediation is just life, an ongoing process that we do all the time.
Yes, and that's where I really believe empathic listening comes into play. Especially when you're dealing with a vendor over the phone trying to rectify an issue.
And you can use empathy when you're dealing like with a vendor trying to do some kind of address some issue.
Yes, and it's intentional. Empathy is intentional, listening is intentional. Because, and I'm speaking from a personal perspective, when I get upset, I can go from 0 to 100 real quick.
So for you, you're speaking from personal experience. So when you get upset, you can go from 0 to 100 really quickly. And so there's an intention in terms of being empathic. Yeah.
Yes, and I have to talk to myself and say, it's in terms of the vendor on the other end of the line or whoever I'm chatting with. I hate those chat lines. I'm having to remember it's their job. This is not personal. They're
Okay.
following the rules.
Yes, you have to sort of step back and think these other thoughts and try to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah. And sometimes I've learned from my experience in insurance that the person that answers the phone is not the person that can fix your problem.
And you've got some understanding that it's just like in insurance that the person who's like there answering, they might not be the one that can solve the problem.
Yes, and I have done this in the past. I will say, I know you can't, you're not empowered to fix this problem or to respond to my problem. So I would like to speak to your supervisor.
And you can, if you know that they can't solve the problem, you just ask for the supervisor right away.
Yes, and I make it known to them too that it's not personal. It's not anything that they did or said. It's just, I just don't want to have to tell my story again.
So you tell them this is not personal. I just don't want to tell my story again. You just let them know.
Yeah, so in that way, I think I'm empathizing because their job is to answer the phone and try to, resolve whatever it is without passing it on to someone else.
And you see that approach as being empathic towards to the person answering the phone.
Yeah, because it's just their job and they probably get screamed at a lot just because they answer the phone.
Yeah, it's their job. You have understanding. It's just probably their job and they get screamed at and you have some understanding for that.
Yes. So as we talk about mediation, I wish, and I have to go with Rob about the Middle East. I'm struggling with what's going on in Israel and with Hamas because I have empathy for the children on both sides.
And you struggle with that conflict that's going on in the Middle East because you empathize with people on both sides, the children on both sides.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard, and I think it's time for us to be beamed up.
Yeah, we got about 40 seconds, or you can
Okay.
also leave the room. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoyed.
Thank you.
Been good.
Yes.
Stay for the debriefing. It should be interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
judging them.
Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank
you, Tara. Yeah, thank you,
welcome.
Shonda. Welcome back, everybody. Those of us who were in the main room, while you all were in breakout rooms, we got a little group going here, and we had a little empathy circle of our own here in the main room. And so that's what we were doing. Is you all are coming back in, and welcome everyone. And Edwin or Linda, would one of you are going to lead us through the debrief of everyone's experience?
Thought you were doing that, or anyone.
Oh, okay.
Or
Then
am I wrong about that?
that's totally fine. I am happy to do the debrief.
Oh, it was
So
BJ. I'm sorry.
that's
Right.
BJ. All
Okay.
right. Thank you so much. BJ, you are on board as our, and turn on your mic.
All right. I hope everybody had a great time. Thank you all for staying. Oh my God. The word for the room. Let me just take a deep breath because I'm kind of hyper anyway. So if everybody could take like 30 seconds and just kind of talk about how they feel about the empathy circle and their room, and we will go to the next individual. Just take a few minutes to state how you feel about your room, and we will go to the next person. So Claire.
Hello.
We're just doing the debrief. Let me just put that into the chat.
So we're doing a debrief. A debrief is when you say like in 30 seconds how you felt about your circle, and if you would think that you would like to come back.
Yeah. So this is my first time. I actually showed up at 10. So I was in kind of a little makeshift circle that happened in the main room, but it was really special to, I mentioned this there, just be affirmed and given the space and given the kind of floor to talk about, you know, empathy in general and its importance, but also usually a topic or context where empathy is salient. So I think it's really special to be able to kind of break down the walls a bit and then also feel reflected back and be able to do that for another person. So yes, I would come back.
Thank you, Claire. How about you, Madeline?
Yes, I second that emotion, Claire. It felt really good to be able to listen to others and to feel listened to. And yes, I would be interested in coming back.
All right, Rosa.
Whoops, I just found my mic button. Really a deep pleasure to be here as always. Thank you very much to everyone organizing this. And yeah, I look forward to being back.
All right. Cecilia?
I had a wonderful circle and we expanded on more areas and I really loved it. So yes, I will be back.
Veronica.
Absolutely, BJ. This is a second time for me, and it was an amazing experience, amazing group of women, and just an overall summit. And of course, I will be back.
Thank you. Deanna.
Hi, yes, I loved it. That, by the way, this is my first time being here with everyone and meeting everyone, and I really appreciate you guys. I really mean that. The empathy circle was great. I think it was great, but I will tell you, I need to listen a little bit better sometimes, you know. But it was fun, and I learned that everybody likes coffee because that I learned that. I shared that with them. But thank you for having me, and I would definitely come back.
Okay. Jana.
We had a really lovely and poignant empathy circle. We talked about conflict in our lives and how empathy has helped conflict in our lives. And then we talked about self-empathy, you know, how we can all benefit from some of that too. And maybe the practice of giving is also receiving. So I love empathy circles. And of course, I'll be here again. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bob.
very grateful for this gathering and for the honesty, and I really appreciate it and so grateful. Thanks.
Right. Dr. Gola.
We had a great circle, and all of us came away with the desire to discuss our nervousness around getting the form right or doing it right. So hopefully we can bring that to the larger group of how to deal with nervousness and the form, as well as the freedom that lives in the process.
Right, Ruth.
Yes, thank you. I must say, I feel exhilarated after our empathy circle. I think it must have been some of that coffee, Deanna. So I really enjoy it. I will be coming back. Thank you.
All right, Denise.
The form is new to me and brand new. I think it's actually useful to get comfortable with the pith, sharing that you don't have a lot of time. And it's also frustrating because there's so much more that you want to share and talk about. So it's just that tension that I was really playing with. But I actually think it's really useful to be able to say what you want to say in just a short period of time. So I would definitely come back. Thank you.
Right. Jennifer. Okay, Tina.
I thank you. I consider today to be a gift as well. And I found it insightful, learned new things, and I appreciate the opportunity. And yes, I definitely come back. Thank you.
Sonel.
Thank you, Vijay. It was a wonderful and enriching experience to know and to interact with a lot of people and their emotions also. So lovely experience. I would definitely want to come back.
Thank you. Rob. Sorry. Rob.
That's okay. Yeah, we had a really great, I got a lot out of the circle. I thought it was a really great conversation. I learned a lot. As I told the group, I don't have mediation or arbitration in my background. I'm a moderator and a researcher and an author. So it was eye-opening to hear more about the stories they had. And then we got into a fun sort of mind-expanding activity discussing the other metaphors and analogies around the shoes that we walk in, and maybe empaths or all empathy activists, participants such as ourselves, maybe we move through the world barefoot. And I will definitely be back.
All right, Mary.
Yes, I found it was very, very nice. I have to use the word sweet. I found the people that were in the group were very, very kind and empathic, and I'm definitely coming back for sure. Yeah, I've learned some things.
Okay.
Self-empathy, especially.
All right, Jonathan.
Oh, thank you so much, BJ. We had a lovely group, and I just can't tell you how important training is. We just wrapped up this year's online Empathy Circle facilitation training classes. And if you go to the schedule, we've got training sessions in person coming up at the Santa Barbara Center. And then next year we pick up with online training for facilitators. Thank you.
Okay. Ellen, did you go?
I just want to say I really love the group. I love the speakers, and I will be back. And that empathy is not the form. So I hope we can relax into what form we use, but the empathy is in us and it's showing up. And we did that. So I'm very happy that I came today.
That's good. Irene?
For me, this was a wonderful learning experience, not only of the wonderful people that were in the group, but I also learned several things about myself. We shared experiences, emotions, and to the point that we knew we were vulnerable by sharing. And I think that enriched the conversation a lot more. And yes, I will be back. It was great.
Okay, Kara Jean.
Oh, you can't keep me from these. I absolutely keep coming back. Yep. And we had such an amazing time. Jenna wrapped it up really beautifully, so I don't have anything to add there. But we were having such an amazing time. We spoke literally until we got sucked back into this room. And I could have done that for 3 more hours. I came in low today, and my heart and my soul have both been filled up. I thank all of you.
All right, Sally.
Oh, you know, I kind of have to really think about that people, I get really dark and I have to work on that. So I'm not spreading my, well, maybe I'm going back into the fog when I really need to be in sunshine with brand new people, and just amazed at the summit and all the different presenters, and I want to spread warmth to all the people who are here. Please.
Right. Linda.
I always have a good time in the circle, and I really enjoy meeting different people and their different perspectives on, and today we were talking about empathy, and I got some little nuggets that I need to resonate or marinate on for a while. Some good information. Thank you.
DJ.
Yeah, I want to thank you, BJ, for an amazing summit, and Linda and Kat and Edwin. This was incredible. And thank you so much, Deanna and Irene. And I know there's another speaker here. Sonal. Thank you. Thank you for coming to the circles as speakers. I think that's really wonderful that you did that. And each one of you are so gifted and so incredible. And thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. And I always will be here if I can. Thank you.
All right, Kathleen, do you have any thoughts?
Yes. Well, this entire summit has been an amazing experience for me, and I feel so blessed to be amongst so many wise, wonderful, empathetic people. What a great opportunity. And it was so fun to have our own little empathy circle. I expected that I was just going to be in the main room holding down the technological fort for all of you in case anybody had troubles. But instead, what happened is I was gifted with these beautiful people who came into the main room late, and we had this impromptu empathy circle that was so heartwarming and such a blessing. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity, and will always be back, and looking forward to the training at the Empathy Center later this month. Thank you.
Okay, Felix.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, Felix.
Hello. Good day, everyone.
Hello.
You want to share your feedbacks, Felix? How was the circle for you today, the event?
He needs to be unmuted.
What about Casa?
Hey, well, let me just check real quick and say, Felix, do you know that you're muted? Are you trying to share? So Felix let us know earlier that it's his wife's birthday, and he may be having to divide his attention in this moment between his wife and son and us. So let's move on. Yeah.
Casa?
Actually, that's Shoshanda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Shoshanda?
Yes, I just want to say thank you guys so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed it. I was able to certainly receive some nuggets from this, and I certainly will be back.
Hey.
Right. And last but not least, Edwin.
Yeah, I want to thank all the hosts, the speakers, the volunteers, and all the participants for taking part. In our circle, we sort of explored the metaphor of empathy as going barefooted. So I took off my shoes. I'm going barefooted here. And anyway, we're kind of still playing with that metaphor. Had a lot of fun with that. There's sort of a tingliness, when you're going barefoot and empathic, you just sort of feel the world in your body, and so got kind of like goosebumps. So from that. So in terms of
Sorry, Edwin. I
Oh.
see some more people have appeared. Claire.
Okay.
Shonda.
Want to hear from everyone. If there's anyone who hasn't gone, we can.
I see new names.
Is there anyone that hasn't introduced themselves?
Oh, Claire, I'm sorry. You
feedback.
have gone. I apologize.
I think we got everybody.
We got everyone.
Thank
Okay.
you. Good looking out.
Yeah, we want to make sure everyone gets to give their feedback. And so what we're going into now is just sort of into the closing and the next steps. So I'm going to put into the chat some links. So there's a lot of links there. So the first one is the summit recording, the Q&A, the feedbacks, the bios, etc. They're all posted to the event page. So you can go there and everything will be there. The recordings will be there within a couple days. We'll put that on YouTube and have a recording posted there that you can watch. Somebody mentioned they had missed a section. You can find it there. Our next summit date is January 6th and 13th. So it's actually two summits. We're having empathy book authors talk about their books. We're going to have well over 20 authors. I see Rob here. He's one of the speakers. Yeah, he wrote a book on empathy. And he will be there to speak about his book and the motivation, why did you write these books on empathy? And so we're going to be able to hear about that. I'm really looking forward to that. And then we have a whole list of other empathy events. So you can check the empathyscenter.org visioning circle site. And there's a list of different events, empathy cafes, circles that coming up. We have a training here in Santa Barbara. This is the background here is in Santa Barbara, where I am right now. My brother purchased this center here, and we're building an empathy center. It's 35 acres, about 55,000 square feet, and we're building this empathy center here and hope to have in-person summits here at some point as well. We're having some workshops here, and so you're welcome if you're in the area to come and take part in those workshops. We also have in actually 2 hours, somebody said, oh, I'll be back. Well, I hope in 2 hours you've got a chance to come back and do another empathy circle. We'll go for an hour and a half. And what it is, it's a visioning circle, and it's in the same Zoom room as this one that you came into. And it's a visioning circle about how do we build a center here in Santa Barbara. We're sort of at the beginning stages, just sort of building it up, doing renovations, starting with workshops, and sort of scaling up. We have a long way to go. There's a lot of work to do, and you can share your ideas and your vision for the space, and also share how you might like to get involved in the space as well. And that's, like I said, in 2 hours. That's 1 p.m. Pacific time. And finally, the very last link, which I'm going to put in one more time. So that is the feedback form. It's the very last link. And I'm just going to ask everyone to just take a minute right now and just click on it. And just open that feedback form, and you'll see the form. And if you scroll down, you'll see that it asks for your email, if you can put in your email. And so just going to get you started on that before we close. So do fill that out. We're going to close now, and then hopefully have that window open. You can fill that out. We just love to get your feedback. You'll see it asks if you want to be join the team, the summit team, the Empathy Summit team, that we are producing these every couple of months, every several months. And We have the next one, like I was saying, is January for the book authors. May is going to be about empaths. What is it? Why is empathy a brilliance? Is going to be based on the book of Judith Orloff, who's has written a lot of books about empaths. So we'll have that in May, and then there'll be a lot more coming up, and you can actually help us create those and produce these summits. And even if you have a topic, you can kind of take that on and host it. So with that, thank you so much. This is such a pleasure. Just so grateful for everyone taking part. And we just like to end with our jazz hands. Just get everybody into the portrait with your jazz hands and you know, vibrate those. Rob's got the God, I just really some energy in those jazz hands. So see you next time. So look forward to seeing you, hopefully in 2 hours. So bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Sonal, for
much.
staying.
Bye-bye, everybody.
It's 11:30 there. Thank you, Sonal.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Deanna,
everyone.
Irene,